Welcome everybody to Rocket Lab Weekly episode 122 after a very turbulent week, few weeks in the market. I hope everybody's fine and your portfolios are fine and you're still with us. This is my current job that I do during the day due to the market conditions. But other than that, I'm fine. So how is the rest of the crew?
Pretty good. I mean, it was definitely an exciting week. Not a bad time to have cash on the side too. It was like the portfolio took a big pullback, obviously, I think as anyone's here. But I managed to actually buy some Shift 4, some Redwire, and some EOS, which is like the Shift 4 would be like new money, if you will. So I increased that position by 15%. And then Redwire and EOS were from previous trims. So those were increased by 18 and 20% respectively for like $0, if you will. So feeling pretty good about that. Again, I'm not trying to be like I'm expert at timing or anything, because like I don't think anybody, even still in hindsight, people are like, yeah, what is that? What's happening? Is it going to persist into the future? Seems like it was like an algorithm thing or what have you. So yeah, I mean, interesting week overall though. How are you guys feeling?
Good for me. I took the opportunity on the dip to buy some other stocks. Same with I bought some Rocket Lab. I bought about $15,000 worth at 71. And then a couple other opportunities. I think I bought some Bitcoin, some Palantir, some Symbotic, a few companies that I'm starting to pile into. But also want to apologize for missing last week. I was meeting some of you guys in person, so it was nice to be able to. We got a lot of good kudos at the meetup that we had in New York, and a lot of people saying Rocket Lab Weekly has changed my life, and so that's just like, it really hits my heart, and appreciate all of you guys for coming up to me, and a lot of them talked about you guys as well, Vince and Dave and Scott. So people were asking me like, tell me about LC3, and so it's just it's really awesome. Truly appreciate you guys really sticking with us for 122 episodes, and I'm really excited to see what the next 1,000 episodes look like.
Awesome. Really appreciate you guys. And this week I had a very interesting dad moment, because like I was telling my kids like how much the market has fallen, and my kids got a reward that was not due yet, but it was like $150 each. And then both of them was like, now we need to buy. Oh my God, Daddy, can you pull forward the reward? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then my daughter, I mean, she doesn't know what, she just asked like, what are good stocks, And then I said, yeah, I mean, Rocket Lab, you should buy more. And I said, yeah, you could buy Tesla, Robinhood. And, like we ended up buying Robinhood for her. And the next day she was up like 14%. And I sent her a screenshot, like, your stock is up 14%. And then she answered like, Daddy, I don't know this. Is that good or bad? So yeah, that warms my heart, that the kids can think like this, when they hear that the market is falling, then they're like, oh, we need to buy more. So that's very good. And I must say, I was thinking, and however bad it feels that the market is falling, Rocket Lab is actually holding up really, really well. I mean, there is so many stocks that are falling like 40, 50, like some is like 70, 80% down. So I know we say Rocket Lab is a really volatile stock, but in this recent downturn, like Rocket Lab has actually been like one of your safer bets. Never thought I would say this, but the lower beta, like it has been the lower beta,
Always has been. No, I'm just kidding.
Cool. Great. So I think we could start this week. How about we start with the FUD? That like we should start with the interesting. So there has been some news that Rocket Lab experienced an anomaly during the Archimedes engine testing, and this came up. For me, it was like obvious FUD, and I put it so much away that I couldn't find the link. But I think Scotto has some more for us on this.
Yeah, I requested a screen share too. I got a couple images to go with it.
There we go.
So the story is that several Archimedes have blown up to date. But the interesting one, so we have the picture here. You guys have all seen this. They have the two test cells, test stands, whatever you want to call that. This is kind of status quo, what you'd expect them to look like. But the recent FUD is that there have been multiple explosions, one resulting in a secondary fire needed to be put out. This is dated from November 30th, and to make a long story short, you can see that the fire started during a test when an anomaly caused an electrical box to catch fire. So this resulted in the fire department having to meet them out at site and kind of, chill things down a bit. To take that a step further, you can see a couple of pictures in between. So we have September 7th. There's a scorching on the left cell only. So that's where the testing was being done here. And that's the same thing below with no text over top. So you can kind of see it's been used, right? I think the right side is the newer of the two test cells. But then something happened between then and December, and that kind of lines up with this the November 30th date on the dispatch log. And you can see that there is a roof blown off of one of the test cells. So this is presumably the one that took place on November 30th. And then, as you can see, a couple of weeks later, the test cell roof is replaced with no scorching. So that's the one that's been making the rounds. The blow up was so bad that it blew the roof off and whatnot. But the stuff that's not as public, I guess, is that there have been several explosions, and one as recent as January 12th. And that one, I don't have anything as concrete as a dispatch log, but that is just kind of the rumor going around right now. But there are two, I guess, but I want to ask you guys about how you're feeling about this, but there are two things that I want to quickly dispel first, because there are some, I mean, first things first, it's going to happen. These engines are going to blow up. We're in the test phase. It's kind of unsurprising, right? But the part that's kind of has rubbed me the wrong way is some folks have kind of taken it of oh, well, look at the dates that management is selling, et cetera. And they're trying to kind of recontextualize it as though they are hiding the information of the engine explosion, and they sold all their stock before it became public. I went through these last night. Every single one of these is a pre-planned sale that was agreed upon. I think September 19th is the date, mid-September for sure. The only exception is Merlin St. Hill, which is not technically a pre-planned transaction, but it was actually I'm sure there's a more technical term for it, but like an equity swap. So some of her Rocket Lab shares went into a fund in exchange for shares of that fund. So again, it wasn't even this oh, shoot, sweep it under the rug, sell your shares before the news comes out and the stock tanks. So I wanted to quickly dispel that the whole management selling out, after the explosion, that was decided on 3 months prior to when the selling actually took place. And the last bit of FUD that I want to dispel, I mean, well, no, it is FUD. I'm just going to I'm not even going to try to be on the fence with this one. Is there the test site manager left in the past month or so. And people are looking at that. It's oh, he's given up, he's quit. He's the guy who's largely responsible for Blue Origin's BE4 engine as well. He worked on that as well. But people are trying to frame that as though it's things are going so bad that he quit. He retired. He's in his 60s, I believe. So it's, it was just him retiring. Not that he was giving up on the program or anything like that. So
no retiring.
Yeah. So So that's kind of that. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I know it, like in my paradigm, I'm like, yeah, and there was a fire during an engine test, like you know, like yeah,
Test without fire, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I saw this particular picture. Somebody sent it to me a couple weeks back, and I've always been under the assumption that if something was horribly wrong, just like what we saw with the potential tank explosion last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, then they would disclose it to the SEC. So my thought is that it's either, like it stated, just a small electrical fire, and it wasn't actually something to do with the engine itself, and it was just something that just happened to. But they also have the second bay where they can continue testing. So my thought process is maybe they were trying to test it above limits, right? And if they tested above limits, and maybe it wasn't, but since it's above limits, maybe they don't have to disclose that, and or maybe it was just an electrical thing, and it wasn't going to actually delay things by a massive amount, and so therefore they felt like they didn't. But I think, to me, I think this is this. While it's good due diligence that people are continuing to focus on the company, my thought process of it was meaningful, knowing the group of people and the executives and what they've described in previous incidents where there was issues, right? If you think about like the September 2023 anomaly, when they tried doing stage 1, stage 2 separation, and it didn't ignite, right? And then there was the RUD there. They paused, even though they got FAA approval to fly, rather quickly, they waited until they figured it out, and then they talked about it openly on a conference call. And so my anticipation is that if it is something, then we'll find out about it later this month, or maybe it's early next month. I forget when the call is. But if it was that large, would have been probably a Form 4 or whatever they have to disclose to the SEC. But I could be wrong, and I've been wrong before. And no, I'm not smoking too many cigars. I'm sick. So, but I do smoke too many cigars. So.
We wish you to get better soon. I'm on the same page as you. I mean, for many interviews with Sir Peter Beck, they are also test fast and fail, but as opposed to blowing up rockets, they want to fail on the component level really fast and then redesign. So I want to remind you that the tank collapsing in the hangar and the rocket engine blowing up on the test end is saving the company reputation, saving tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and is actually speeding up the process of getting a fully reusable first stage going. And I mean, if you read any books on SpaceX history, I think also when Heavens went on sale, SpaceX has also blown up a lot of engines during testing. I think it's part of testing that you blow up engines. So yeah, these kind of things happen. If you look at the structure from different photos, the structure is I think it's, how do you call it? Like, it's made in, like, the structure is made in a way that if things blow up, it's very easy to rebuild. Like the roof is just a plate that you take off and put on a new one. I guess it takes no time to do it. So yeah, as I said, I saw the news, I yawned, and then it disappeared, and I couldn't find it again. That's how much I feared from this news.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. And to kind of echo what you guys are saying, the additional rumor, which I think is valid, that there have been multiple engines blowing up. I think that just kind of underlines what you were saying in particular, Matt, where it's like, when that main structure failed, that wasn't supposed to happen. You know what I mean? But like the engines, like they've been very clear, like, yeah, we're probably going to blow something up along the way, including that big tank that we saw close to a year ago now, where it's like, yeah, that we didn't need SEC filings for that because it's going to happen. They've been very clear about that compared to something that wasn't supposed to collapse or crumble.
I was actually thinking this might even be bullish. So let's look at this. Like maybe the engine program is doing so well that they have enough engines and they feel like they can like push things to the absolute limits now. Because even if things blow up, like they have, because logically, like first you would like run the rocket very slow and smooth, and you go up to 90%, 95%, 100%, then you test. Can the engine do this? Can it do that? And then only when you have all the information and you're like, okay, let's push it to the absolute max, is when you would like maybe have multiple engine failures in a couple of months because you're at the very end of maybe the qualifications testing, and you're very confident and you have a lot of engines. I don't know, but yeah, could even be a bullish thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe maybe this is copium, but to me, if you think about it, you always want to know what the maximum capability of everything that you do is, and to me, if they were to try to re-rate what the potential lift capacity is, now that they actually have it on the stand, now's the time to do it, right? And so, I'm cautiously optimistic that if there was any issues with the engine, we would have already kind of heard about it. They've been testing them now for over a year, if I remember correctly, right? It's been since like middle of last year. And so if there was any major design flaws, I think that we would have already kind of heard about that. We've had several conference calls since. And so to me, I think if anything, if it wasn't just an electrical anomaly, like was kind of stated, it was likely that they're saying, hey, let's see, can we take this from 13,000 on a fully reusable return to launch site sort of lift capacity to 16 or 15, and we need to be able to test the engine for X, Y, or Z. And maybe that's what it is. So I'm certain that if this is something that is actually wrong with the actual rocket itself, we'll hear about it, just based off of what I know the management has done in the past. So to me, I feel like we're a year into this. I feel like we've run through enough rocket engines at this point that it would have been disclosed that there was a major design flaw.
And we move on to the next one. So let's start with Rocket Lab news. So Rocket Lab posted more than 100 spacecraft were safely deployed to precise orbits by Rocket Lab separation systems in 2025, soaring past our previous annual record of 64 separations. Another 100% mission success for these critical systems. And I actually saw that Scotto posted a tracking of the separation systems, and that business is a no joke. And I'm actually curious, guys, where's the tech support? I'm not sharing the screen. So here it is. And here's the previous Rocket Lab post that I mentioned. Okay, but we go back to Scotto. So I never thought anything about this Rocket Lab separation systems business. So could you elaborate a little bit on this tweet, why you think it's such a big part of Rocket Lab's business, and how it's going for them?
I mean, so they acquired PSC in 2021, I think it was, and it's just like kind of every story that we're hearing with Rocket Lab when they acquire someone. It's just like they were kind of humming along, had a good product, but didn't have the scale that's needed. So, I mean, I think that tweet kind of like capitalizes it very succinctly, where it's like the number of reaction wheels that were launched in 2025 is 28% of PSC's lifetime, which is since 2001. That's how many have launched in 2025 alone. So it's like it's I mean, it's growing like kind of like with you, where you see with like the reaction wheels, where it's like 106% increase over the year prior. the separation systems, that is. And it's just, oh man, you like pick your component and they're all growing at like, 40% plus, it seems, is a safe assumption.
What do you mean by additive and cumulative? I got it. Yeah. Sorry. So, yeah. Cool. So in other words, Rocket Lab can acquire and tuck in companies really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge piece, right? Because you see so many companies out there that try to do bolt-on acquisitions and fail. And I think that this is why, and I said this last week at the meetup, like I think that the appreciated hero at Rocket Lab is actually Adam Spice, and in the partnership that they have between Sir Peter Beck and Adam to recognize what is a really good bolt-on acquisition that they should have in their portfolio versus what they can build in-house. And I think it's that experience that Adam got at Broadcom, which is also a phenomenal bolt-on acquirer, and he then applied that expertise to Rocket Lab. And I think it's a beautiful dance that they're both doing that ends up showing up in great cases like this.
Adam Spice, I think, is definitely underappreciated. Doesn't even have Twitter, guys, and no social media. And he's not planning to change that.
I bet he'd post some unhinged tweets late at night.
Cool. Remember, guys, if the stock price hits 400, he said when we did our first interview that he will get a Sir Peter Beck tattoo with us. So, so we are 20. At one point we were. Sorry.
I will too. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll fly to wherever he's at. I'm like, let's go, my guy. Where do you want it?
Okay, to be fair, he didn't say together with us, but he said that he will also get a Sir Peter Beck tattoo. But yeah, we should make it together somehow.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So the next post is Rocket Lab posted. Let me just check. Okay, good. You guys can see what I see. So introducing a disruptive new launch capability requires more than just building a new rocket. We're looking well beyond Neutron's first launch to scale production and launch cadence quickly. It's a strategy we employed for Electron and now one of the most frequently launched rockets in the world. To do this, we've established 4 state-of-the-art facilities enabling streamlined production, R&D, test, and launch for Neutron beyond Flight 1. And then they show off the facilities. This is, I think, is always good to go over again and again. So Engine Development Complex, Long Beach, California, the home of the Archimedes and Rutherford rocket engine production. EDC is where our rocket engines begin life in our advanced 3D printing facilities, which churn out engine parts day and night. I believe this is the old Virgin Galactic factory that was acquired by Rocket Lab for pennies on the dollar, right?
I think so, yes. I'm like 90% sure, yeah.
So the next one is Archimedes Test Complex, NASA Stennis Space Center. This is the one where maybe the roof has been blown off. The home of the Archimedes engine testing. We have side-by-side test cells to enable multiple hot fire and qualifications campaigns at once. And then Space Structures Complex, Middle River, MD. Neutron is the world's largest carbon composite rocket. So it's only fitting that we create the world's largest automated fiber placement machine of its kind at our Space Structure Complex. It's here that we automate much of the Neutron's carbon composite production before we head to Launch Complex 3 for final assembly and launch. So this place is where the tank collapsed, and this is the place where we thought Neutron parts are manufactured, and we were very surprised to see that they were coming, like the Hungry Hippo and other parts were coming from New Zealand. Okay, and then the last one is Launch Complex 3, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport on Wallops Island. Neutron's gateway to orbit. We've streamlined operations by establishing LC3 right next to Electron's pad at LC2. US launch sites are typically crowded with rockets jostling for launch slots. Wallops is one of the least populated US launch sites, giving us more launch availability to enable high flight cadence. So this for me is very great to see, and also that while we're waiting for Neutron, it's like they are really setting up the infrastructure so that we can rapidly go on to launch 2, 3, and 4, and hopefully repeat what Electron has done and become one of the fastest rockets to scale to 100 launches and beyond. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, looks like they're firing on all cylinders. Love to see it.
Yeah,
they're firing on all cylinders and roofs and everything.
Yeah, firing. Yeah. The thing that was confusing to me is the middle tank. So if you go back to the previous picture where they were kind of at the Virginia,
Yeah.
or Maryland, I guess. I don't remember if it's in Maryland or Virginia. But like, look at that tank structure compared to the ones that they've output. Like, so it's a little bit confusing to me. And Scott, you're smarter than I am, but this seems like one cohesive, printed sort of structure, versus the other one seems like it's utilizing smaller print structures that are then connected together. And so I'm curious if, like, eventually the hope is on serial number 2, 3, 4 of the entire rocket, if it ends up looking more like this with one cohesive structure, or how's that going to work? Or is it just specifically this part that is going to be 3D printed like this, and the rest of them should be specifically anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Good.
Yeah, like I know the first one is going to be like more modular, whereas like to what you're saying, Matt, like that very, very large printing machine will kind of spin up like larger and larger pieces as time goes on. I guess it's kind of like what we saw with that that Archimedes that was at LC3. You know, it was like there's all the like those sensors and like inputs and stuff, and there's even an agreement with I think it was with Nikon, if memory serves, where the premise is, someone is pointing to the rocket, like this piece and this piece, those are going to be just one, this piece and this piece. And it's just talking about like just kind of streamlining the process and like reducing parts over time as these technologies kind of prove themselves out.
This is what you mean, right? That this tube, for example, if you look at it, it's different on the top, and there's like these stripes on it and different colors, and it looks like it was patched and pieced together, as opposed to,
which there still will need to be, right? But that looks like it's like 1/3 of that other structure, right? And you could put 3 of those on top of each other to make the one midsection that's necessary.
That's a very interesting observation, actually. And I think, let me see if somebody knows the answer in the comments. Because I was also wondering, like, how come they don't mention the New Zealand site? Because that's where like some components came from now. Because like maybe this site is like not fully up and running yet, or not at the scale that they wanted, and they needed help from New Zealand, or I don't know. That's a little bit confusing, this part. And in last week, or when we were discussing this, I think it was Francisco or Miss Iglesias or both that mentioned that it could be that some of this is like protective films or sensors that is like put on the rocket to test certain things. But yeah, it's a very good observation, Matt. It's definitely very, like, the two tubes are very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like and then if it is different, well, they have to get retested. I don't know. Did we ever get clarification if this was third party?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, the first one was indeed third party. I think Jacob, I see you in the chat. The that third party one that was made in New Zealand, if memory serves, right? Pretty sure that's how I remember it anyway. From after last week, it was followed up in the chat.
Well, somebody said the third party tank was not the failure.
Wasn't the
Francisco
failure.
said
That structure of stage one was bad and had a lot of defects in the carbon fiber. Interesting.
Okay. Third party tank was good, they said. Okay. Interesting.
Dan, I want to go in the spirit of looking at Stannis and the engine burns. This was a picture. I believe that Francisco was the one who noticed it. Like the picture on the top is like the first burn that we have gotten, and we still admired it. And the bottom one is like how the engines are burning these days, and you can see how much cleaner and more concentrated the tail is, and how much nicer the diamonds are. And this red hue that we see here, as far as I understood, it could come from like the engine itself burning into the flame. So like meaning that they didn't like fully optimize the rocket yet. So clearly they're doing very, very well with the engine testing. I don't know if you guys have any comments on this.
No, I mean, it's cool to see, especially in light of the like what we were talking about earlier. Like, yeah, like there's going to be good tests and there's going to be not so good tests. But as you can see, the trajectory with the cleanliness of the flame. I don't know if cleanliness is the technical term for it. I'm sure it's not, but it's definitely a sign that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, that's something I also wanted to look at, as well as going through the pictures that we have been able to see of all the different test site and how different it's changed, to see, you know, how impacted, if there was an explosion, how impacted the local structure is, because all those not 3D satellite images makes it a little bit more difficult to understand what the true impact could have been.
Also, just looking in the chat, I'm like, Francisco is mentioning that he spoke with someone from, I don't want to get him in trouble. He spoke with someone from Middle River. He's mentioning that I think it was the third, hold on, was warned. Rocket Lab was warned that the carbon fiber was bad, and it sounds like they're actually moving. Oh, and Jacob follows up that the stage one LOX tank was transported from RI. What's RI? I'm a Canadian here. My apologies.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Goddamn Canadians. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? We'll be American soon enough. From Rhode Island to MD via helicopter. And it also sounds like Rocket Lab is now working with another company for help. So I guess the next like Neutron Tail 2, if you want to call it that, is going to be partially third party as well, which is kind of surprising. You know, some new company from Middle River is helping Rocket Lab with the stage one carbon fiber.
So yeah, I don't know. Going back to the engine and the burn, it's like, it looks like that they've like definitely optimized the amount of fuel that's necessary, right? Because I'm just like thinking, I don't know, I'm no expert, right? But if you're using methane and hydrogen to really get this going, and you just have pure blue, I mean, that's just like pure fuel being burnt. But if you have the reddish, it's probably due to excess fuel in the not fumes, but the exhaust, and then that has the opportunity, because you're burning everything else, to kind of reignite. And so it kind of makes more sense too, because it's like, if you look at it in the actual stream coming from the bottom photo, it's like you don't have that, or maybe it's because it's blue on blue, but you don't have that auxiliary sort of like tail of kind of like diffused, looks like burn. But in the top one, you could almost put like the bottom one on top of the top one, and just recognize that like the excess around in the red is completely gone, and that's what I anticipate is this like excess fuel that needs to be burnt off. So it's likely just due to optimization, which is really cool. Yeah, the cleaner burn. I mean, Francisco said it in there, but it's just cool to kind of look through it.
I think hopefully we will have an interview with the management team after the earnings, and then we could ask them this, for example, like show Sir Peter Beck this picture and say like, what's the difference between these two, and like give us some technical insights. I think that could be really interesting. Cool. All right, so that was all the Rocket Lab news that I had for this week. I do have some other news that are probably majorly important for Rocket Lab. We will end with the really big news, but we start with this one that I thought was interesting still to bring up. So House takes first step toward creating a commercial deep space program, and apparently there's a new reauthorization act for NASA that is going through the House, hopefully will be going to the Senate, and they reworded that NASA does not need to use the SLS rocket to go to the moon or to do deep space exploration. It was reworded to basically any commercial provider. And the way this would affect I believe is up through Artemis 5, as far as I understand. The SLS is booked and cannot be changed. But after that, whatever makes more sense for NASA, like if it's a dedicated Starship or New Glenn or Neutron or whatever best fits the budget and purpose, NASA is free to choose that. So I think that this is very good potentially for Rocket Lab.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. Have you guys seen this, and are you reading it the same way as I am?
No, I haven't seen it, but I'm kind of on the same page. Yeah, same page as you. Oh, Vince, you might be muted.
Do you hear me?
Oh, no, I hear
Do
you.
you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. No, I was thinking, so Mr. Matt, I guess you're on the same page.
Sorry, I got distracted. I'm looking at the Archimedes test area pictures. What specifically was the question? You're on mute. Or you can't hear. No, you're not on mute. You're just really muffled.
Am I? 1 second.
Oh, no, now I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. So we have this article here that the House basically makes it so deep space program can be run by commercial companies. Doesn't have to go through the SLS launch system. It can be any company. And this is past Artemis 5. And then if you read it the same way as me, that it's potentially really good for Rocket Lab.
Yeah, because I think and I'm curious how this fits in with the Mars Transport Orbiter or telecommunications or whatever. Because a lot of people have been like, "Oh, that's delayed. The House knocked it down." It's like I'm wondering if this could also somewhat play into that. So it's like, while one of them may have been kind of knocked down, this might potentially be the offset to that, right? So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I was distracted. Sorry, I'm looking at photos, trying to see if I can see any differences between these Archimedes engine test stands.
Yeah. No problem. So the next one is very small news that finally astronauts will be able to take their latest smartphones on the rides with them. I don't know why this hasn't been the case, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting when they start doing TikTok videos and from the far side of the moon and showing us what it's really like. So I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we end on the really big piece of news, and that is that SpaceX has acquired xAI, and this is before the SpaceX IPO, and this is definitely not something. If you would have told me a few years ago that Twitter was going to be owned by SpaceX, I would say, like, what the hell are you smoking? And I was thinking if this is good or bad, because we were always thinking that the SpaceX IPO is going to be a major catalyst for Rocket Lab. And then the fact that SpaceX is becoming like a space and an AI company, like it's not a pure space company, I was a bit like trying to assess in myself, like, is this good or bad? Because I feel that it becomes less and less comparable with Rocket Lab. So I wanted to see like what do you guys think, and are we still going to see the stock price skyrocket and everybody should sell the farm and bet on Rocket Lab, or should we be more cautious now?
I think that it's going to be one of those things. I mean, like to kind of like contextualize it. The Twitter X platform was bought or sold for, I think it's 42, 44. We'll call it 50 billion. I haven't seen anything. I heard on a podcast today that it was like sold or acquired by SpaceX for 250 billion, or 250 billion, which actually seemed quite steep, but sure, why not? But I mean, if SpaceX was already looking at like a $1.5 trillion valuation, this is kind of like, I was going to say like the Electron to Rocket Lab, but that's not even, it's even smaller than that. It's like, well, whatever, like one of the space system components to Rocket Lab's Neutron. It's like, sure, it's there, but are people really going to care that much? Probably not. It's going to be like a space company. To put the tinfoil hat on, though, I'm not sure if this acquisition session is done. I'm kind of under the impression, well, I'm hearing rumors and I'm skeptical, but it also wouldn't surprise me if Musk just kind of rolls everything into one company and just calls it X Corp or something of the like. To put a tinfoil hat on, the tinfoil hat, the ticker X was just acquired by somebody. We can only assume who that might be. It was previously held by I think a Japanese steel company that went bankrupt, or was acquired or up for
sale. It was
U.S.
Steel that was then acquired by a Japanese company.
Oh, okay. Do they still use that ticker? Do you know? I mean, I guess not.
I don't know. Let me see.
I don't know how that would work, but I remember it was like a year or two ago when that happened, and I was like, oh, that'd be so funny if they got that ticker.
I think they kept it private, but I think they took it private, but I think as part of the negotiation, they still have to operate or something. A lot of their sites in the U.S. and they can't just like shut it down.
Oh, okay. My misunderstanding.
Yeah, no longer a ticker. You're right.
But like, I do wonder if it's going to be like, or like how they're going to break that out. Is it going to be like, this is, like Falcon 9 delivery revenue, this is Starlink revenue, this is xAI revenue, or if it's going to be really like just all lumped together and really confusing. I don't know legally how that would, or I don't know if legally is even the word. Like structurally, that would make sense, and especially if it is like Tesla and SpaceX / xAI, and then I don't know, Neuralink throw in there too, Boring Company too, I guess. If those are just going to get rolled into one big outfit, but like when you look at like all the antitrust or like, I don't know, it just seems like every time like Google's like, hey, we're going to do anything, the government's like, hold on, we're going to put a pause to that, and we got to go through a big long legal process. And then if you have two $1.5 trillion companies trying to merge in together, like I can't see a world in which that goes like that's like not very cumbersome. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I actually don't think that there is an issue with the monopoly here because it's SpaceX buying XAI, right?
Mhm.
And then there is a lot of other LLMs, like Grok is not even like they're not even one industry, right? So it's not like OpenAI is buying Grok and then they together make a monopoly. It's like but you're bringing up a good point because I also hear this merger talk between Tesla, and that's what I mean. That if, let's say, SpaceX or X IPOs at $2 trillion, but it's not a pure space company, because like my logic was that if SpaceX would IPO and they get a okay, like the closest example that I can give is, when Tesla IPO'd and then they were an electric car company, and then the companies that came after, like Lucid, and I'm telling you it's a bad example, or Nikola, like they got, like investors were looking at Tesla and they're like, okay, Tesla became this, so like Nikola and Lucid is going to also become that. So therefore, like normally it would be valued at X, but we're giving a 5X valuation, And then those companies turned out to be vaporware and scams and, blah, blah, blah. So that's why it's not a good example, because Rocket Lab is a very potent company. But like if SpaceX would be a purely space company and IPOs, and then it's 1.5 trillion, then people would look at it and they say like, oh, that is the future of Rocket Lab, and Rocket Lab is only 50 billion, or I don't know what it is now. It's what is it, 40, 30 something billion. Then, we still have like it's very late at night, 50x in the stocks or like something, just to become to where SpaceX is today, But if SpaceX becomes like a conglomerate of like a car manufacturer, social media, AI, then it becomes like, not like, it becomes irrelevant that, okay, yeah, like SpaceX is 2 trillion, but it's not a space company. It's like space is a part of it, but you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I want to push back on that only in the context or the framework of like I feel like people should already be looking at Rocket Lab as not a launch company, but they do, just because there's the big sexy flame shooting up into the sky. And same thing with SpaceX, where it's going to be like, it's going to be like, the Falcon 9, the Starship, and oh yeah, that Starlink thing, and what XAI, what? It's going to be like, just the focus is going to be the Starship, because that's what the media loves to publish. It's like, Musk blew up another Starship. That's all they think about when they see SpaceX, and I think that'll just carry through the IPO. What are your thoughts, Maddie?
I mean, my thought process around this, I got a lot of questions about this, particularly last week, and to me, I think them having disparate goals, meaning SpaceX as an entity and Rocket Lab as an entity, I think is very useful. I mean, I'm not saying that Rocket Lab doesn't eventually want to put people on in Mars, but I think that might be a longer term journey. I think right now they just want to make sure that they make life better here on Earth, and then that to me means it's going to be more Earth focused, whereas I think SpaceX is very much Mars focused. And so anything that they could do to get robots or vehicles or whatever on Mars, I think is that particular piece that SpaceX is going to potentially build on. Versus right now, I think Rocket Lab is really fulfilling the opportunities that are here on Earth. So it could very much change, right? But to me, that's always kind of been like what the benefit of having a Rocket Lab is they're really more so focused on, the things that in the space needs that Earth needs, not necessarily what we need to do to get to Mars. And so I think they're two space companies that obviously have paths that intertwine to an extent, with very different goals in mind. And so therefore I think there's a market for both. And so to me, a prime example of this is like they're eventually going to move to Starlink V3. And this is something I said in one of my recent videos, but they're eventually going to move to Starlink V3, and that can't be launched by the Falcon 9 rocket. But what has been like 70 to 80% of the launches is for Starlink V2 in the most recent years. So it's like we might be at the peak of the Falcon 9 right now. And as that gets decommissioned, there could be a large avenue for Neutron to have an opening, especially if Starship doesn't actually decrease in cost as much as everyone thinks. Like everyone right now thinks eventually Starship will be $10 million. Well, if that's not the case, and it's still $75 to $80 million, and that's such a large vehicle, who's to say you're going to choose that, right? Like of all the things that you're actually putting into space, like yes, if you need to launch more than say 20,000 tons, then maybe you'll go with a Starship. But if you don't need to, you only need 10,000 pounds of what you need, or 10 tons to put up into space, you're going to go with the Neutron, and therefore it leaves an opening. So I think that there's so many different ways that these intertwine, that is beneficial. There's so many different ways that these don't intertwine, and there's holes in each other's sort of business plans, that it can make room for both parties. When it comes to XAI, I'm not 100% certain on the reason, other than continuing to focus on the reasoning for acquiring it for SpaceX, other than trying to make sure that they set up a company that's sustainable on Mars. But to me, I don't necessarily have an idea as to how it's going to help them as a space entity, rather than more sustaining life on Mars, which kind of gets into a different piece, right? It's like you need space in order to get to Mars, but is life on Mars really what? I don't know. So I'm still trying to fully comprehend the strategic intent of it. I understand why they're doing it, but the strategic intent is where I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit. But I don't think it's for increasing launch capability or anything like that. I think SpaceX has that well on their own. So I think it has more to do with how do you situate the company for 2035 plus, when you finally do get to Mars, and when you do finally have people up there, and how to best keep people alive and sustaining up there. But to me, I think it's just an opportunity. I mean, just like First Solar, right? It was an opportunity to roll it up into Tesla and then utilize that solar capability for Tesla. And who knows? Maybe also they realized that they were utilizing a lot of the SpaceX GPUs and compute power at XAI anyway. And so instead of just, and this is something that's speculative, right? Instead of just continuing to pay out of SpaceX into XAI, maybe they realized the increased capacity that they were using, it was just cheaper to just roll them into one, and that would also at the same time increase the ownership and valuation.
Just want to say the stated reason for SpaceX and XAI was the space data centers, because like Musk really wants to go into space-based data centers, and like SpaceX has the Starship, but XAI is the one that would like run the space-based data centers, and then it didn't make sense to have them as two different companies, because then you have like one vertically integrated. And this is where the Tesla talk comes very interesting in, because Musk mentioned that Optimus could be on the moon manufacturing these satellites, and then it could be launched from the moon. And Tesla is talking about creating a like a chip factory, which would be powering the AI satellites, and then it would like actually make sense to have all of them in one, because so it is pretty crazy, but we live in a crazy world.
I also do see N7 for Shepard. In the comments, he mentioned that he read SpaceX has halted looking at Mars to focus on the moon. And I found that really interesting, seeing this piece of news kind of with Blue Origin halting their new Shepard program around at the same time. It seems like for whatever reason, everyone's just like, stop what you're doing, data centers in space, let's go fast. And like when you kind of consider the market that Neutron could service, it's going to do a lot better just delivering these satellites to low Earth orbit versus trying to build a base on any other planet. So whatever the reason for this big pivot so quickly, it seems very beneficial for Rocket Lab as a whole, like as a space or a satellite builder, but as a launch provider, almost especially.
Because you know how like Tesla killed the SNX, like the Model SNX, and they were like well-selling, profitable, very good models, but they're like, no, the future is this. We need the factor for Optimus. And do you think, because a lot of people were fudding about that when Falcon will stop launching the V2 and goes to the V3, that can only be launched on Starship, that then there's going to be all this Falcon rockets that are basically free to carry anything, and then SpaceX is going to discount, like, just give us any money and we launch whatever you have just to use up the last Falcons? Or do you think that Musk is going to put like a hard stop, like no, the future is Starship, F Falcon, and then like it would, because they kind of did that with the Falcon 1 was the first like Electron, and then they went to the Falcon 9 and they left that market open for Rocket Lab to take, and now Rocket Lab kind of has a monopoly. And do you think that will happen again in this space?
Like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like, especially when, you know, there's that rumored story of Peter Beck and Elon having dinner, and then suddenly SpaceX has a new program for rideshare. And, you know, kind of reading between the lines on that was to kill Electron, or to like kind of take that market. Not even, you know, to sound too malicious. That's like that's kind of what it was, right? The idea was that they'd be sharing that market. And so it wouldn't surprise me either way to see the Falcon 9 try to undercut Neutron, but you know, it also wouldn't surprise me if they just were like, hey, screw it, let's just move forward and just kind of try to do the exact same thing on a larger scale, where it's like what previously would have been on the Falcon 9. It's like, hey, don't worry about the Falcon 9, just hop on the Starship. We're bringing some sats up already as is, so bring them on board. But I don't know. What do you think happens, Matt?
I don't know, man. It's tough. I mean, until I really understand what long-term commercial launch is for the Starship, it's tough to see what the impact would be on a Neutron per se. Yeah, it's interesting to kind of think. I mean, all I keep hearing is that they eventually want to get it down to 10 million or something along those lines, and whether that's 10 million to launch each one, or if that's 10 million to the customer, because that obviously will have massive implications potentially on Neutron. Yeah, so I don't necessarily have an answer on that, but I think one of the other key things about this whole movement is, if you're going to take, say, SpaceX public, and you also have a bunch of people that invested in XAI and also invested in X, which was acquired by XAI in 2025, it gives you an avenue to just quickly give liquidity to all those other folks that invested in all those other entities. So it might be just strictly business, or there is this overall collaboration for XAI and SpaceX to kind of work together, considering it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not fully digesting it yet.
All right. And last question. Do you guys think that there's a world, so if let's say the market continues to shit the bed, that SpaceX like pulls back the IPO and they wait until like there's better times, or they are like dead set and they're going to IPO no matter what in June this year, which is 4 short months away?
Just based on the hunch alone, I bet they're going full steam ahead, kind of regardless. I'm not sure how it works behind the scenes, but I'm wondering if that 1.5 trillion is already locked in, and if SpaceX does see that, you know, kind of, you know, what could anticipate to be crumbling in the interim, if they would just be like, you know, screw it, let's just go live and kind of deal with that as it is and still go live as 1.5 trillion, or if that would be re-rated. I don't know. But I'm quite convinced that it's like, I shouldn't say convinced. I'd be very unsurprised if that whole Tesla X Corp rollout is not, if we don't see that sooner than later. You know, especially with what you're saying, like Vince, with the whole Optimus on the moon type situation, where it is a little bit perplexing too, because like if you want to really like split hairs, a lot of the initial XAI stuff didn't really make a lot of sense to me, because I'm like why are they dividing the teams? Why is X not just brought onto Tesla? Because they're taking essentially Tesla's talent, Tesla's hardware, and kind of their capital, depending how you're looking at that. Like, why are those two different things? And now Tesla's, you know, paying, I think it was $2 billion to buy some of XAI, but then it's also being bought by or acquired by SpaceX. It just seems a little bit like kind of all over the place, and a little bit frustrating as a Tesla investor, because it's like, well, why isn't Tesla acquiring this? Like, Grok is going into the Teslas, like the Optimus are going on the rockets. Yeah, Vince?
I think Musk has also said it, because there's two ways that you can pay an AI engineer, and you know, you have to pay market for AI engineers. One is that you give them stock-based compensation, and the other one is that you give them a salary. So now any AI startup that the engineers join, they know that it's going to start at 10 billion, and then it's going to go to 50 billion, and then 100 billion, and then so Facebook, for example, they didn't have this because Facebook is a very mature company. So what they needed to do in the end was to actually pay AI researchers like $1 billion salaries, because they like the stock-based compensation was not attractive enough. So Tesla had the same choice. Like, Tesla is a mature big company, so they could like drain their cash balance and give this insane pay packages to the AI researchers, which I think would not have worked in Tesla. Or you make a new startup, give the stock-based compensation, give a low pay to the engineers, and then the stock basically pays them as it appreciates, which ended up happening in these mergers.
Yeah, like I get it from that angle, but I'm just kind of like, it just feels a little bit like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure there's more behind the scenes, but I just can't help but look at that and be like, wait, what?
And hey,
Like,
France is going to invest $30 million to make the EU AI leader. Just read it on Twitter. I'm sure it will work for them. It's the price of I calculated it's probably like 0.1, so like 10% of a top-rated AI researcher in the US, without buying any chips or setting up any data centers. So I'm sure the US is shaking in their boots.
oh boy.
I think the only thing that would stop the IPO of SpaceX is if it's not going down the right path. Like, if the entire DD that the largest companies are doing to kind of bring it public say, all right, well, we're going to IPO at less than $1 trillion, then I feel like they might say, okay, well, then we'll just wait a little bit. We'll wait until, you know, this happens or that happens, and then try again. So I do think that there is a potential stop out where Elon wants to ensure that the people that have invested with him along the way into both XAI, as well as now SpaceX, that there's that liquidity that they will deserve at the valuation at which they believe they deserve. So yeah, that's the only place where I think it would potentially stop. I think also it really depends on if Elon's going to be able to maintain control. So I think he owns like 35 to 50% of all of SpaceX, but I think he also has special voting rights, kind of like what the Class F shares at Palantir, where, you know, he has some shares that allow him to make more decision rights than other people in the company. And so as long as he's able to still own more than 50% of the voting power of SpaceX, I feel like he's more than than happy to kind of let it go that way, because I still think he wants to dictate how the company runs, even though it's a public company. He still wants to dictate, the mission of the company, because if it was up to, I think, the shareholders, they would more likely focus specifically on Starlink and making sure that that is the most profitable engine, while not seeking out Mars as an opportunity. And so therefore, the whole reason why SpaceX was created in the first place, which is make life interplanetary, will then cease to exist. And so it'll be interesting. I'm very curious to see how these negotiations and talks kind of work. I know that Elon has a lot of space in terms of being able to only own probably like 25 or 30% of the company, but still own majority of the voting. So I'm just kind of curious how that piece is going to work as well.
I'm also wondering how that new stock award plan is going to pan out as well, because like I'm just kind of looking at it right now. My understanding is it's like based on market cap. So there's 12 tranches, 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion, 3 trillion, up to 8.5. And I wonder, like, if SpaceX and Tesla merge, for example, that's already 3 trillion. So does he get like I'm not sure the numbers, but is it like billions of dollars worth of stock just because he's signed the two together? So that seems like a shortcut, you know what I mean?
I think there's also performance targets included with it, but maybe there are some pure market cap targets as well. Because I think he has targets as well that it has to be an X million FSD subscriptions and Optimus. I don't know the tranches, but yeah, that's a very interesting question. Like this, what happens with this pay package? Because it doesn't fully make sense if the companies merge.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying, Vince. It isn't just market cap. What I'm seeing on screen was at the time, but there's tranches for a certain 10 million FSD subscribers, 1 million Optimus bots, that kind of stuff. So it is kind of performance based as well, not just necessarily market based.
I think this was all that I had for the show this week. Let's free Scotto, free Alberta. I saw on my YouTube comments from last week, somebody asked me if I'm French Canadian. I don't know what gave that away, but yeah, that's my new identity. I'm French Canadian and I work at McDonald's. So yeah. Anyways, so what do you guys think about the market? Did we bottom out now, or are we dipping more? Or I want to know if I should give my 2 weeks notice at McDonald's, or I need to keep.
I don't know. I really don't know. I have no idea. It wouldn't surprise me either way. Like I don't know if people continue to panic, or if that kind of algo training or earnings season, whatever you want to blame it on, is kind of wrapped up in the past. I don't know. Anyone's game, I suppose.
I'm not smart enough to know. What I will say is that every 2 weeks, I'll have some cash when it's the 15th next. I think I have a bunch of buys set up for the 16th or 17th next week, because I think it's going to be a holiday on the 16th for us here in America. So I think I have a bunch of buys set up for the 17th, which will include my normal. And if I happen to stumble across some money, if I think the price is right, just like I thought at $70, I'll, put as much as I can into the market. But yeah, I'm not nearly smart enough to be able to determine whether or not I think this is going to persist. But I think that one thing that I have been saying for quite some time is the companies that aren't executing and don't have the revenue to stand on, which is not Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab, while it might not necessarily have the greatest price to sales ratio and it might be overvalued, I still think it's in a different league than some of these, say, small modular reactor companies that are kind of hoping that some of their technologies actually flow through, and they don't actually have a working product as of yet. Those companies, I think, are going to continue to struggle in this sort of environment when people try to get risk off. And I think that's also explained by people selling out of Bitcoin to an extent, is they want to get risk off. And while I don't think Bitcoin is as risky as an asset as it used to be, I still think it's a thermometer for retail investor and to understand what gauge of risk people are willing to kind of accept. And so I think it might be tough for the next few months. I mean, there will be some companies that rebound and have already started to rebound, like Rocket Lab and many others. But I think some of the other companies that are continuing to see whether or not their revenue actually shows up for them will continue to be tough, and they might rebound slightly. But I think in the next 1 or 2 years, it might be a cooling off period, which is also beneficial, right? Because if you see the companies, just like with Rocket Lab, if you see the companies that are still getting to that point of revenue generation and executing, you might be able to pick them up for pennies on the dollar. And so this is hopefully a good opportunity for folks to potentially put money in. And I think for me, it's been now my goal to potentially sit on a little bit more cash than in the past, because even in this go around with this retracement that we've been seeing, I don't have nearly as much cash as I'd like to be able to deploy. And so I think for future years, I think I want to add a little bit more cash into my portfolio than I have in the past, and also allows me to have that flexibility that if I wanted to take some time off or take a trip or something like that, I don't have to be so cash strapped for a month or two while my salary catches up. It's like, no, I have a little bit. Let me just pay off all the credit cards for the time being and live a happy life and reestablish that equilibrium in the cash balance. But right now I'm mostly just, like I always state, like paycheck to paycheck, just always putting money into the market. Like I live like I still was when I was like in college to an extent, from like never having any money in my checking or anything like that. So I need to transition more into a cash balance that is more sustainable for the long term.
Matt, if you don't mind me asking, what's your cash historically been, like as a percentage, and what are you planning to do going forward?
Like zero.
Okay.
Yeah, like zero cash ever. If I can scavenge up money, and a lot of that was like, oh well, I'll just use the SPY as my cash account, right? Like, because I invest a lot, I'll just say, of my monthly allocations towards stocks and just the SPY, whether that's the 401k or whether that's in my individual brokerage account. And so, and I did do that a little bit to an extent with Amazon. When Amazon tanked on Friday morning after the Thursday earnings call, I did sell some of my SPY to put it to Amazon. But I have not religiously been doing that. That was always the reason for having a large SPY position, because it's like it'll always kind of be my cash where I'm always continuing to invest in it, etc. But it never really has been that way. And so it'll be nice I hope to get it closer to 5%. So that's kind of the goal in the short term. And I have started to save a lot more for taxes. So if I'm running covered calls or selling puts or something like that, 40 cents of every dollar that I make is going into like a tax account to prepare for that bill. And I know at the end of the year, I'm going to have likely more saved in there because, I don't think I'm getting taxed 40%, but I think I'm just using that as a bin to put cash away.
You lucky bastard. You don't think you're being taxed 40%.
Huh? I don't live in communist Sweden. No, I'm just kidding.
You're not kidding. You don't live here. Yeah. Cool. I mean, I will make
great.
this prediction.
I didn't mean to be. I'm not trying to be. It was a joke. I don't. Sweden's great. And the people are great. That's why I talk to Vince.
Yeah, I make one prediction. I think that the crazy selling that we have had, I think it will take a breather, but I don't know if this is the bottom of the market, or we go back to all-time highs. But I think the selling has gone like a little bit overboard.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I saw in the chat, my apologies, I don't remember the name. My bad. Either way, Firefly's alpha is expected to launch on, wait for it, Friday the 13th. So Alpha 7 is going to be launching 289 days after Alpha 6's off nominal flight, which will be Firefly's 7th launch and hopefully their 3rd success. So we'll keep an eye on that and talk about that next week, assuming it goes off.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Cool, guys. So may your sky stays blue, your stock stay green, and your roof's not on fire. So see everyone next week. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you all.